drifting tender, comrade, heroes ride. Her gallant severed away with the tide. The storm head gathers, comrade, heroes ride. Illusions scattered away with the tide. Why do weathered warriors wander their way where the wanting wonders wait? Hark the herald's anchors away. Here there happens mine escape. Freedom forgone, sinking abyss, comets crumble, Phoebus fades under cosmic clamor decay. Hides the path untaken. Ancient echoes come right, heroes ride. In deafening silence, away with tide. A wave of hazard, come right, heroes ride. All in and windward, away with the tide. Stellar stories, starward be strewn, slipping sidewise, see their snakes. Twixt the leaves you'll find not a miss. Missing gods and crossing fades, freedom surging, shifting ahead. Comets dancing in her way to the cosmic clarions accord along the path not taken. Tread on the road that is borrowed design. Through the sum of the signs do they seek tomorrow? Tonight, witness them as the end shall begin. What was final their lives, falling back, further back to burn, to come home. Come ride, heroes ride, ride with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, so far from home, away with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, so far from home, away with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, to my final escape. Come ride, heroes ride, ride with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, so far from home, away with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, so far from home, away with the tide. Come ride, heroes ride, to my final escape. Whispers falling silently drift on the wind, but I hear you. Our journey now, a memory fading from sight, but I see you. Unbroken promises we made so long ago. Your spoken requiem for a river of tears, flowing, winding toward eternal sea, and yet our hope remains, guiding, lighting the way. No time for mourning, rises on the land reborn from the ashes. 'Neath the heavens to sunset, blood red skies, tranquil laughter. No more time to waste. No, it's not too late. Though a fleeting moment has gone, to forge ahead. You're not alone, yeah. As we ride again, as you turn your eyes to the stars, another end, where it all begins. My chorus guiding you. Forge ahead, tales of loss and fire and faith, every word on our hearts engraved. In the dark you will not stray. Forge ahead till the end we pray. Tales of loss and fire and faith, every word on our hearts engraved. In the dark you will not stray. Forge ahead till the end we pray. The sigh of the shifting sea, the kiss of the salt sweet breeze, the white of her silken dress stained in red, her memory fading fast. Her mother sits, eyes downcast, a torn uniform in hand, farewells unsaid. That once a certainty, lost in grief, a daughter's desperate cries, unheard pleas, forsaken, beaten, tried, on her knees. A prayer passes from her lips into her soul, the goddess whispers. A heartbeat without harmony is moonlight without dark. The heart seek of equilibrium with balance will your worried heart. So still this broken melody, and there will shoulder thee. One last step, only leaving an empty heart down by the sea. Empty heart down by the sea. Shintamani, 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 Shintamani. Staring at death, I take a breath. There's nothing left. Now close my eyes for one last time and say goodbye. Lying naked while the snow falls all around me. Drifting closer to the edge, but she won't have me. Wake up and sweat, full of regret. Try to forget these memories lurking beneath, lost in a dream. Unchosen paths, a broken past, forspoken wrath. The pain won't cease, I'll find voice from the past screaming, there is no end. A slave to my fate, ever doomed to repeat this again and again and again and again and again. Falling too fast, but the fall will not break me. A voice from the past that goes loud like a drum. No more goodbyes, I am tired of waiting. Now open my eyes, my last night of waiting. Now open my eyes. Here I come. Soul laid bare, foul and fair. Every secret, every odyssey. Answers unfold, one with the truth, the divine. By my guiding hand, perfect is there. I won't be denied. You are mine, you are blind, a fool till the end. Cast out forevermore, I create, manipulate. You're kind in my image, my chosen ones. For you the time has come, the sun is setting. Say goodnight. With each bite does your sanity die, sucking the life out, letting the dark inside. Say a prayer as the light leaves your eyes. So scream all you like, your gods can't hear you. Say at night to the weakness that you hide behind, believing the lies, feeding the fear inside. Never once were you truly alive. So scream all you like, no one can hear you. Like greed and not thrive, these seeds rotten and reaping the fruits of your wickedest fight. Come take a bite. Life, please resist me no more. Twisted and broken, farewells left unspoken. Journey's end, as I said. Pandemonium. Here I rise, claim my prize. Every moment, every sacrifice. In an abyssios, I am the truth, the divine. By my guiding hand, perfected we stand. I won't be denied. You are mine, you are blind, a fool till the end. Cast down forevermore. I create, manipulate. You're kind in my image, my chosen ones. For you the time has come, the sun is setting. Say goodnight. With each bite does your sanity die, sucking the life out, letting the dark inside. Say a prayer as the light leaves your eyes. So scream all you like, your gods can't hear you. Say at night to the weakness that you hide behind, believing the lies, feeding the fear inside. Never once were you truly alive. So scream all you like, no one can. Say goodnight. Say goodnight. Let us breathe. Savage nobles, hundred thieves. Say goodnight. Living lions, follow me. Say goodnight. Say the lions, follow me. Say goodnight. Follow me. Say goodnight.
Shrieks knife through the deep. Natureless creatures perverted and evil. From foulness rise a vermin tide. Teeth bare, clawing the air. Sing like to sing you, the rats do not fear you. In slaughter's keep, the piper weeps. Just like mark on your back. Here in the valley, your death casts no shadow. Serious lane comes from the gate. Lay bare, drink clean, wrapped deep in the bones that feed the menagerie. Buzz hot, buzz breathe, follow till there's nothing left but ash. Dark horizons, void seas, and the sickness that drives you, bleeding black, demoniac. Pride breeding, blood thrive, these seeds rotten and reeking the fruits of your making. Testify, come take a bite. Bite down, blood in the cut, choking on life as your life slowly swallow, fade away. Or don't be afraid, lay bare, door, more and more mind till it shatters just like glass. Lay bare, grit clean, red deep in the bones that feed your insanity. Unwind, unfold your mind till it shatters just like glass. Dark horizons, spoiling seas, pandemonium from the borders, chaos bleeds, savage nobles count your feet. Pandemonium, here be lions, follow me. Come follow me to pandemonium. Abandon all hope in pandemonium. Pandemonium. Lay bare, big clean, red deep in the bones that feed the menagerie. Burns hot, burns bleed, for hope till there's nothing left but ash. Dark horizons, spoiling seas, pandemonium. Here be lions, follow me. Dark horizons, pandemonium. Abandon all hope in pandemonium. Pandemonium.
Ein brings shadow, one brings light. Two-toned echoes tumbling through time. Three stories fit and cast aside. For knowing no end in sight. One brings shadow, one brings light. Two-toned echoes tumbling through time. Three stories fit and cast aside. For knowing no end in sight.
All our splendor be blank in silence. Our surrender, a song reverie. Slowly drifting down into twilight, left to sifting through fading memories. Know our places for what is wordless. Evanescent, this writing on the wall. Brothers, take this descent to madness. Come and save us, catch us before we fall. Riding home, riding home, finding home, don't lose hope.
Like broken angels, wingless, cast from heaven's gates. We only fly when falling, falling far from grace. Our lives a message in a bottle cast to sea. Quick to their ends, our candles burn until we're free. In the rain, to line in darkness fade. Yes, time circles endlessly. All these chains drawn to the flame, to rise from the ashes to begin. We first must see the end. One brings shadow, one brings light. Two-tone echoes stumbling through time. We score wasted, ten cast aside. For no end inside. One brings shadow, one brings light. Two-tone echoes tumbling through time. We score wasted, ten cast aside. For no end inside. Rock of ages, we cast the first stone. In our cages, we know not what we need from there. Deep inside, we're nothing more than science and sinners. In the rain, to light and darkness fade. Yes, time circles endlessly. The hands of fate train ahead, right to the edge. All things change, drawn to the flame, to
be helpful if I turn my mic on. Hello and good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? And welcome to episode 115 of Lore Lines. We are continuing our Dawntrail MSQ discussion, and we are joined today by Shadowmeowth, Neela, and Aeneas. Hello, everyone. How are you today?
Hello.
Good morning. I'm tired, but I'm ready.
I feel that.
Right?
It's too early for anyone to be alive right now. So here we are. Aeneas, by the way, congratulations on clearing, I don't know what 3 Savage. Arcadian 3 Savage. We haven't settled on a nomenclature
M.
for it. Emmett? It's M?
It's M.
Okay. All right, M3.
Thank you.
I've
I've been doing 1 savage fight a day, so I left 2 days for M4. Let's see if I can get weak when it clears after having worked the race. I think that would be a little insane of me, but also very on brand.
That would be amazing. We still have a couple of days left.
Mm-hmm.
Meowth, I understand you've been writing more notes.
That's one way to put it. I been it's Aeneas' fault for bringing the whole cognition thing, because I feel like I have ascended after this revelation, and everything feels like it makes sense. And I've gone down that rabbit hole right now. I'm speculating like 2 expansions ahead. And my brain is steaming. Like the other day I was trying to sleep. I had my notebook and my pen next to my bed, and at least thrice trying to sleep I had to write this down.
I've started giving you the visions of A.L. the Darsh. Congratulations.
No, I want to actually bring all of my conclusions to you after you're done with the Savage thing, Aeneas, because I'm sure all of this that I'm taking notes, you're going to find the thread connecting in 11 context. So I have to write all of this down.
I will certainly let you know when you send it to me.
Amazing. Neela, what have you been up to?
Oh, I've been doing a little of this and that. In addition to the usual writing, I've actually started working on the fully voiced playthrough. It will be forthcoming.
Okay. Awesome. I know
there's editing to be done.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure. There are a lot of unvoiced cutscenes. You should read them, because if I recall correctly, the first time they bring up the shards and reflections is in ARR, or Yanje talks about it. And it's not a voiced cutscene, and if you don't read it, you're not familiar with it until way later in Heaven's Word.
Indeed.
So yeah, kind of important. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic, living memory. So, there's a lot to go into there.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah, so we have a stable bridge. For some reason, Ishtola doesn't come with us. And when we go into living memory, it's basically this paradise. And my first reaction when we got there was, oh my god, we did it. The Sundered recreated Amarot. That's amazing. And then I very quickly realized what a nightmarish hellscape this place was.
And thus the circle continues.
Yeah, for sure. So, overall thoughts. Meowth.
Living memory is an aberration. It's it's everything of it is an insult to the ancients and to the seed of Netzok. That's basically all I can say. Also, it's actually more inspired by 12 than you actually realize. It's the Endless, basically the Undying, and there's some stuff around Everkeep and Everkeep's design that is meant to evoke Yurvegan, the city of the Ikuria in Final Fantasy 12. Which is an interesting thing I've been kind of chasing down, but for now, let's leave it at it's inspired. The layer, of course, is Alexandria. It's Final Fantasy 9. But in this aspect, there's a lot of more of 12, Final Fantasy 12 that you realize. So
Yeah, I will be honest. I played 12 and I remember the hunts. And I really need to replay it. I bought Zodiac Age and I want to play Tactics before I play 12.
you
But
have to play
I
Tactics.
know, but it's not on Steam yet. So I want it to be on Steam because I want to play Tactics so badly. But I want to stream it and I can't.
I would join you if you stream Final Fantasy 12 though.
Okay. But no, I actually completely agree that living memory is basically an insult and an abomination to everything that the ancients believed in and stood for. Like, this is essentially taking the life process, the life stream, out of the hands of the planet and just kind of usurping it.
And that's without the cost to the living.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I was initially extremely upset at living memory because I was like, oh my god, I don't want to kill all these people. What is this? This is terrible. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, but is it really, like, are they really alive, or is this just, wishful thinking on the part of Sphene and Alexandrian preservation?
This kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week when we touched on living memory, but you're supposed to kind of feel that moral conflict, right? Because you were still these are still things that look like living creatures and have real memories but are not technically alive. They just give off an incredibly realistic impersonation.
They're very
of doing
good facsimiles.
Yeah, they're very good facsimiles, right? But it puts you in the seat of the convocation members that descended to Asians in a very specific way, not just in that, like, the roles from Shadowbringers are now reversed of, I do not see you to be truly alive, ergo I will not be guilty of murder by killing you, but also in the context of having to grapple with, are these people alive? And even you can take that a step further too, right? Because this society is the facsimile that is left after a rejoining. You're essentially finishing their work.
Yes.
It's a note of finality, but that doesn't remove the moral quandary portion of it, because the moral quandary is an inherently important part of that as well.
And it's more, and it's, if I might add something that we can kind of discuss the other day. Where's Ayumi when we need him? Anyways, there's something like, for example, the difference between the Sundered, as the Sundered being real life humanity, if you will, and the Ancients is we discuss this gulf between the Ancients and the Sundered and difference of point of view in terms of being impossible kind of to reconcile their morals with ours, right? So it's kind of course, we're going to naturally more align to the Sundered and their plight than to the Ancients because they feel like strange to us, right? So, but what if we do this the other way, in which we are the powerful ones, so to speak, in something that actually is part of real life right now, which is artificial intelligence and robotics.
That was the vibe I very much got from it. Was this reminds me so much of AI, and I think it's very much intended to make you question what is life, what constitutes a living being. If you go into it with that openness, you're gonna end up with that thought provoked, and you're gonna have to grapple with that.
And I very much think that Aeneas is very correct. This is supposed to put us in the position of the
100%.
ancients, especially when we consider Elpis and thinking back to the basically creations that they had in Elpis and the arcane entities, and how they were creating things that we would consider to be alive, and they had no problem just reducing it to ether, killing it essentially, if it wasn't to their liking. and
Which
it was horrific.
which at the time I commented more that I think a lot of people miss. We do the same thing with animals. We kill them for food. We kill them because they annoyed us. We kill them because they ate our crops. It's not a pretty thing, and I think we should examine that in ourselves. But a lot of people acted very high and mighty for something that our society does.
True.
Animals aside, which is you could argue is part of the cycle of life itself, because we eat and we have to live.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I feel like it's more about what the ancients do, creating familiars and stuff, and not understanding why, for example, we would be upset that a familiar is kind of dispelled. So we do the same thing
Absolutely.
with artificial intelligence. Do we have any moral conundrum when we delete an app, for example? No, right?
Or an advanced mechanical intelligence. We don't,
Yeah,
as far as I know, most people don't have any qualms about that.
I'm gonna cut in here because, real quick,
Absolutely.
as someone who works in tech, AI is not AI. It's machine learning. We are literally
Exactly.
centuries away from actual living AI.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't equate it that way.
I
But
mean,
when we get there,
the concept.
will
I
people care? I'm not
right,
sure they will.
right. I just wanted to put that out there for the sake of anybody listening and also posterity that we don't have AI right now.
There are
and
people who will say that we do,
right.
and they are very excited, but also
And they are
self-deluded.
incredibly wrong.
Yep.
It's
They are wrong and, pardon my French, fucking stupid. Just I needed to put that out there. I saw a comment, GPT chatbot. GPT is not a person. It is someone who knows your Google history. That's
Which
it.
is why,
Yeah.
actually, I think that these recreations, to just segue into what I wanted to talk about, if that's all right. I think
Go ahead.
these constructs that we encountered in living memory are very much like that. I've heard of people using GPT and other chatbot type of things as a way to process grief and have it like speak to them as dead people in their life. And I found that when I heard about it, I was like, what works for you, but that seems insane to me. Like, I found it incredibly off-putting. And I found the living memory thing, once I really came to understand it, off-putting in a very similar way. It's just
very uncanny valley.
It
in
is
the
very
sense that
uncanny
it's
valley.
pretending to be a person.
And I think it's pretending to be a person a lot better than a chatbot would be, because it is, as far as I know, reconstructed with the memories of the actual person. But it's
Right.
still like, we manifest this person when we have the energy, and they poof when we don't. So that's very odd to me. The other thing that I really, the other big vibe I got from, from living memory was a lot of Christian heaven ideas. Just the concepts and ideas of that heaven. And again, it's a very imperfect rendition of it, but there's a little bit of that in it as well. And I'm going to have to find more specific examples, but one of the big things that I kept thinking about while I was going around before we shut things down was the whole idea in heaven of like, well, you're not going to need a lamp, you're not going to need the sun, because God will be the sun, will be the light. And I'm looking at this huge goddess figure in the middle, and I'm just like, huh.
That I cannot speak to. I don't know shit about real life monotheistic religions. So I will
was
take your word for that
raised
one.
in deep conservatism.
I grew up in the Bible Belt, and I managed to scare the pastors away when they tried to talk to me at the high school lunchroom. So
Nice.
Amazing. I will say it really freaked me out how accurate the Yakoi stories were to what we actually saw in living memory. I thought that was
It was
very
plain to me they
interesting.
had actually like they weren't seeing something similar to it. They were seeing the actual place they had to have been. Even in their legends passed down, it was still very accurate.
Yeah. So that was kind of eyebrow raising for me. But one thing about living memory that I found kind of I don't want to say off-putting, but sad, is how many children there were there. And we are told several times, you know, people appear in living memory as how they were when they were happiest. And it's kind of sad that, you know, so many people, their happiest times were as children, and they never were happier in their life after that, or they died as children.
It is interesting, yeah. It
Especially
occurs
in
to
the
me just
Escrow
this
Land.
moment. I wonder how many of them feel that way because of a creeping sense of, oh, something's wrong, something's missing later in life, not knowing they're missing people.
Right.
I don't know. It was just a thought that just occurred to me.
Yeah, I don't know. But I do think that your analogy with heaven is pretty accurate. You know, being reunited with people you lost, being able to bury those regrets. That's a lot of, you know, the promise of, oh, when you die, this paradise will await you. Everyone gets an apartment in the city of gold.
So this thing, Neil, that you mentioned, the Christian heaven, is actually quite interesting in terms of the whole vibe of the Alexandrians and their culture, or what culture came after preservation, so to speak. Because Christian heaven preaches the idea of eternity after death, right?
Yes, there is no end.
And reincarnation is actually a heretic belief.
100% yes, which is very much in opposition to this, which I'm sure is why they had to save the memories, because like the souls are going to go back around again.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, kind of a follow-up to this. Did we have a solid timeline of when the Yokoi began experiencing these visions? Because we know that it predates the arrival of
the building of the bridge. Oh, sorry.
Right, yeah, the building of the bridge, right? But I'm wondering if it predates that as well, or if it was just 100% we know that it's tied to the building of the bridge.
I'm pretty sure we did have a solid timeline in it. However, I could not produce that for you.
I can try and dig into it. Give me a minute. I believe it was solidly in the 6th astral era, but I don't know where in the 6th astral era.
Okay,
Sixth
so it's recent enough that it would be tied to that and not to any previous usage of the key on the source.
Right.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
I would like to address this point because I've seen people using it as sort of like an absolute statement, and it's the fact that Emmett Sott brought the cities of gold. Actually, he used the plural, which is quite interesting.
Yes, he did.
So I'm not that sure. Like people say, he knew about Alexandria. I'm quite certain that he knew about Alexandria, but not ever keep Alexandria. That's a different thing. It's not the same. Alexandria and Everkeep Alexandria. There's a Everkeep Alexandria is implied to have come after the Grail was used. So there's, depending on, of course, right now we don't really have all the information as to make any statement, but we shouldn't be equating that Emmett Silk spoke about the cities of gold as to he actually knew about living memory itself. He could have been to in his travels spoke with the Yokoi, and perhaps they told him about the city of gold. Perhaps he went searching into that, did not find anything except perhaps a pool full of dead babies, and that's not exactly a good impression to have. So you know. But,
well, there was a moon we see once everything's shut down. So in theory, I mean, Asians can shard travel.
I mean, yes, but that's a whole different discussion, you know. But yeah, I wouldn't say he necessarily had to know about living memory per se. I'm kind of. I'm not going to go down that thread right now. I would have to wait a few patches before going into that publicly. But yeah, Yeah, I would assume the same, actually, Cyrilla, because we are basically told about one city of gold throughout the entire Dawntrail, but he spoke of plural, so that's, I don't know if it makes sense.
It's the multiverse.
No, it does. Because a lot of what he stop. A lot of what he also was telling us about was stuff that was like kind of happening on the source. So it could very well be that there's like actual cities of gold in the El Dorado sense and not the metaphorical sense, like in Dawntrail, that we might see in exploration content, like the Shades Triangle, or
Could
something
be.
along those lines as well, right?
Could be perfect. Yeah.
Okay,
It wouldn't be surprising though.
So the
I would also just one thing before Cop. The thing that people I've seen mentioning the whole thing that that MSQ explicitly knew about Alexandria. That's not something that's actually explicitly said in game. The science speculate that he may have known, but all of their dialogues, the two dialects actually that are optional between one of Rakatia, one of Alfina, ponder if he did, not attest that he did. And what the science know or not know is also debatable. So please, don't make absolute statements if that's bad. Okay, go
so
on.
yeah, what the Yakui expedition was 1100 years ago, which would be about 480 something in the Sixth Astral Era. So that was close to when Charlayan named its first Archons.
Interesting.
Yeah, before Gridania, Ul'dah, any of the modern city-states really existed. This was before Galmora, even. Just an interesting
That's quite
thing to put
interesting.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting, in fact.
And Venera says, that's a really interesting point. What about the Golden City would have given the Yakui those dreams? Was it the use of the key? So the key... I don't think it was the key. I know they say that in Yaktel, the barrier between the worlds was very thin there. But I don't know necessarily if that alone would have triggered it.
You guys played the Pictomancer quest?
Not yet, no.
No.
Haven't had a chance yet.
Okay, there's something related to that in the final quest of Pictomancer. So I'm not going to spoil it to you.
I don't care about spoilers.
This is a
I'll get
spoiler
there
cast.
eventually, but it's going to be a while.
We keep telling you, Meowth, just talk.
Yeah, this is a spoiler cast. Let's
Okay, the mentor for the... So basically, the mentor for the one of the characters in the story quest was a Pictomancer. And in the final quest, basically, this girl, this Pictomancer, had basically in her grief over the loss of her master, she made herself part of a painting painted by the master. Okay, and it turns out that this painting, because the Moogle that starts the quest with us basically uses his magic to put us into the painting, and we end up in a recreation of the Grand Cosmos in the first.
That's not.
And when we have the option to mention that, what the fuck, this is the Grand Cosmos, and the Moogle says that the painter, the Pictomancer, perhaps that's a speculation said by the Moogle, that perhaps due to his arcane affinity, he often had dreams of other places that perhaps would have been other worlds, and that's...
So he's full of light aether, is basically what I'm hearing here.
So this is something that's borrowed from 11. That's where the Yakoi are from. That's where the whole concept of visions showing this other plane of existence comes from. They stole the quote directly from it. The Yakoi were naturally predisposed to this sort of thing, along with a few other races. So it's probably not going to be unheard of that we see something else. A great example that gets brought up in the crafting lines and will hopefully be relevant for the Alliance raids is the moblins and visions of a place called Movalpolos. They dug down to reach that city and then were swept away by natural disaster, but that was a similar situation in 11 that they also put a nod to here in 14. Not even a nod, they just straight up did it.
Yeah.
So
Which that makes me wonder if 11 is just going to be part of history in 14, kind of like how Evilise was.
They wouldn't have a way to do that without retconning a whole bunch of 14 stuff. So I think they're going to continue borrowing stories and names the way that they have here in order for them to actually make 11 like as a whole a canon thing. They would have to put it on another shard.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of how all of their soul shit works. Yeah, that's my thing on that.
Yeah, and we'll go deep into that in the 11 episode, which is still a few weeks away.
Right.
So, but
Like I would point out, for example, like if they make it separate games, but games that have a connection, which is something that it's not unheard. We already had Clive, Lightning, and Noctis appear in Eorzea in a sense. We have Iroha appearing from the 11 series, right?
Yeah.
Hell, we even had the Nier series, so there's that.
And
But,
it is just like, oh, we came from another world, and that's it, and that's fine.
Yep.
But it's it's interesting in the sense that, for example, in bringing up Line Returns, it's mutual, and in 15 as well, because it's not just a crossover appearing in 14, but also something that carries over their homeworld as well. So, I mean, not impossible, I suppose, but yeah. Anyways, that's just speculation at this point.
So I will say, and I mentioned this earlier when I was in Living Memory, it was very surreal to see yet more shards of people. So when we get there, I think his name was Constance.
Constancy is Tancred.
Yeah, is Thancred. And I was like, what the hell is he doing here? Okay. And then we go see Riange in Laynode, the Aqua Laynode, where, Romance Land, Venice, basically. But there's monsters there for some reason, because there are monsters in heaven. But this is when we shut that down. This is when we really start to see, oh, this is not a complete illusion. The actual plants and plant life here are actually maintained. And this is actually a physical place. This exists somewhere. This is not a program. This is not, an aether illusion. It's an electrope illusion, kind of like a glamour, but it's very much a real place.
I suppose you could argue that the Endless themselves, being relatively physical, they could tend to the plants and all that.
Yeah.
Honestly, this was a very bizarre thing for me when we were shutting it down. I don't understand why they didn't use Electrope to just make the materials look like that. Like, if you go out into the ruins of Alexandria, you'll notice all the support structure, like the framing of the houses, is Electrope, like, sheathed in or made to look like wood, and then it's like normal walls. I don't know why they didn't do something similar for this. Everything's just being like super high tech and then like looking weird, and all the like. I understand the people are illusory, kinda. I just didn't understand why everything else was too. I guess to give it that very messed up, empty vibe afterwards. I don't know.
I mean, part of it is just by function of this is a video game and we have to be able to
That's
return
fair.
to the zone. But another part of it is also
Well,
it kind of
no, I mean-
speaks to the fundamentally flawed nature of what they
Why
were
didn't the
planning.
buildings just look like that?
Yeah,
Why
why
didn't they
did
make
the
them that way?
buildings just look like that? It would probably have reduced the amount of like environmental cost, if that's
True.
what we want to call like the usage of souls for this, right? Same thing goes for if they don't need to eat, why are you putting so much effort into foods that don't taste like anything?
Yeah.
Exactly.
All that sort of situation, right? So it was the way that it was conceived, and nobody ever went back for a second pass. It was a first draft. Nobody did QA. Nobody did anything. And they just kind of are like, well, this is our status quo now. This is how we have to live, without kind of examining the lifestyle that they were starting to live. It stagnated their whole society in a way that was very
Yeah.
physical, as well as just, hey, you're not actually alive either, you know?
An interesting word to use, stagnated.
Yep.
As in stasis.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
that was intentional.
Hmm. But I would say that actually, I have to. I'm taking notes like mentally right now to write down later. But I think that's the key of this whole thing. It's basically it's gold, but it's just gilding. You know, you
All
take
facade.
you peel it off, and it's all actually bleak and dead, and all of this is this blackness that's actually is barren. It becomes gray and black, and this sort of whitish clouds, fog. It's and then I love something that I actually think it was peak they did, that after you shut down the terminals, the music stops altogether. Like
It actually fades in and out.
Yeah.
no. That's after you go back to living memory.
Oh,
after
you mean
the
like
feed
directly
screen.
afterwards? My apologies.
But immediately after, there's no sound. It's just the wind and the steps, and there's no fighting music. It's just the silence and the wind. And I love the use of silence this way in music, because not many people realize that in music, silence is it's a key part of the music composition.
Yeah.
Specific pauses and all that.
It's very much an inversion of Ultima Thule. In that we go to Ultima Thule and we try and inspire life and hope into all these creatures that live there. And here we're going there to shut it down.
Inspire death.
And instead of everything adding to the chorus in Ultima Thule and the music getting more and more more loud, more full and vibrant and full of life, we're actually shutting it down, and it gets quieter and quieter as we go.
We come in there, and then we bring death to them. But
right.
We usually would associate culturally we would associate bringing death like a bad thing, but it's not.
In this case,
like in music, silence is a vital part of a composition, which means if you don't have the silence to bring power, silence as death, if you would imagine, then the rest of the piece doesn't have the same meaning, you know. This is very kind of philosophical and deep, but yeah, we come here to these people to bring them the end, and it's a liberation.
I mean, they were begging for it by the end.
It's a liberation, but it's also it is the sort of death, as it were, that is going to cause life to be able to flourish more, because there will not be this oppressive, this constant need for more life energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, says, I love how after the MSQ, it's like a ghost or a shell of itself. I think they also needed a visual indicator to show that there is a difference, that once you shut it down, it's not the same. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't look like a city that's lived in and full of life. It looks deserted and appropriately off.
I can see that, yeah.
I personally think it's beautiful the way that it is now too, but I do want to mention for folks who are sad they can't go back to it, you absolutely can trigger any part of New Game Plus right now, and it'll go back to being golden and pretty.
Like, I literally, after I did the very first one, and they're like, it'll never come back again, I hit New Game Plus, and it was back, and I was like, okay, I'm
Yep.
good.
Well, because if it's you go back to the time of Endwalker, you haven't technically destroyed this civilization yet.
Yep.
Go nuts,
Hey.
have fun.
Ride the
I-
carousel.
God, I wish.
It's
You remember
I would
Sorry.
say it's I would say from a meta point of view, the fact that the players can try to undo this speaks volumes of the mentality they want to challenge us with, and because in the end it's all a lie, you know. You're trying to go back and convince yourself, oh, everything's good. Like there's no need for this reality, and we're basically deluding ourselves, you know.
For sure. Aeneas, you were saying?
I was gonna say, I remember when they revealed the carousel at FanFest. I'm just thinking, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Because it was such an innocuous thing, right? Because they were like, oh, and here's this carousel. I wonder where it'll come into play. And everyone is like, oh, that's cute. And nobody thought about it.
Everyone
And now I'm
dismissed
just-
it.
Everyone dismissed it. And I was sitting there going, it had to be important if they showed it to us, right? But I wonder how many of the devs heard conversation of, oh, it's a silly little carousel. Look at that. How cute. And we're just kind of sitting there going, well, they'll learn soon enough.
Yeah, it was funny because you didn't hear anyone talking about the carousel after that. Everyone, like you said, dismissed it, and there wasn't like anyone like Luke Keel going, "Oh my God, the lights are Limbs and Liminson's lights." Like there was none of that. It was just very very dismissed. You're absolutely right about that. And I don't know if you've seen the stuff coming out of China Fan Fest this weekend.
Yes, I'm jealous.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, the sets are incredible. I wish we had that. But the stuff about cosmic exploration and the Shades Triangle, there's a lot of new
Yes.
information coming out about both of those things, so that's really
And
exciting.
the Eden Ultimate.
Mhm.
Ah,
Enjoy.
I'm excited.
Eden Ultimate is something I'm not going to play it, of course. I don't play Ultimate, but thematically speaking, I want to go see where they are going, because Shadowbringers right now is. I'm going to start championing the hashtag replay Shadowbringers. Do it. I'm not kidding, because I'm seeing a lot of people that actually, for all the praise Shadowbringers gets, I feel like not many people understood Shadowbringers or have forgotten about Shadowbringers. And the Even Raid series, well, right now they're quite loaded. So yeah.
I think a lot of people have forgotten a lot of things in general, especially older Final Fantasy XIV, before there was this period of constant payoff. So basically before Shadowbringers, when we had this giant influx of people. And this is kind of off topic, but it's something that I've been seeing about how people were expecting Dawntrail to have all these big reveals and all of these, you know, giant lore bombshells, and that's not the phase of the story that we're in. We're in the setup phase. So if you remember in ARR, there wasn't really any huge reveals. Like there were a lot of seeds planted, and we're getting that now again, because this is basically the ARR of the new arc. So I'm really happy because there's a lot of seeds that they've planted here, and there's a lot of different directions they could go. So it's really exciting to me personally, but people need to remember that just because something wasn't answered or brought up in Dawntrail doesn't mean it's gone.
We still have the patches, which is especially in a Realm Reborn, people fail to remember that the patches were setting up lots of intrigue and ended with a banger. So I would say hold your judgment until the very end, because Stormblood, for example, how should I put this? I very much dislike Stormblood's main MSQ, but patch content of Stormblood is one of the peakest of 14. So
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about Stormblood, I think about Stormblood as a whole, including the patches. So I have very fond memories of Stormblood, even if the story was not very cohesive.
You know what I'm thinking.
This is also the nature of storytelling, right? Is your interpretation is inherently always going to be subjective. And stories have to have slow points, and stories have to have points that you don't necessarily like, because generating that tension is what makes for those big payoffs, right? There was nowhere else they could go after Endwalker. They had to reset the scope, they had to reset the stakes, they had to do a whole bunch of that stuff. And now that they've done that, they've planted a whole bunch of other seeds. There's so much stuff we can go do, and then it's building up to the enemy that everyone on Lorelines has been kind of dancing around, because we can see where the threads are going, but
Yeah.
how they're going to utilize that, we have no idea. We have hopes and dreams.
Yep.
I have a personal vendetta that I'm pushing, but that's kind of the nature of it, right? So letting Dawntrail be what it is and just enjoying it in the moment is the message of the expansion, but is also very important for the sake of building up to the next decade of Final Fantasy XIV story.
Absolutely.
Think of it like planting crops. We are in spring. We are planting seeds. Not a lot's happening yet. Pretty soon things are going to start bursting through the ground, and then it's going to start getting bigger and bigger, and then we'll really be getting somewhere. But you can't have that if you don't plant seeds.
Correct. Push says, sorry, have any of you watched RWF and seen M4S or P2 or done the raid series? And yes, I'm gonna leave.
Is this where I deafen myself?
Yes. I am on the World Race tracking team, so I definitely watched that. I was actually on lead shift when the close calls had to be made, which was the most stressful hour of my life. I'm going to be entirely honest. I'm also going through the raids right now as well. I finished M3S last night and will be tackling M4S today. Which, at some point, we should talk about Arcadian, because the fights themselves have some very interesting ideas about souls and stuff, which I know we're dedicating more
I've seen the backdrop for 4S. It gave me my major ringworms. So yeah.
And we're gonna be talking about Arcadian next week. So
yeah, that's why I'm like, we're not talking too much about that.
Yeah.
At the moment, but the dialogue themselves in the fights that I now have memorized after poll after poll. They say some things that I don't know that they're aware is incredibly fucked up, which is very funny to me as a lore person, but is also, I now associate, I've been Pavlov trained with certain quotes.
I think the most important one is boom. That's my favorite one. And I know we're deviating, but this is kind of tangentially related to living memory. It just drives me nuts how some people are like, oh, Brute Bomber, he's totally a Hephaestus shard. And I'm like, no, wasn't Sunder. Like, what are you talking about?
And that's, I'm glad I haven't seen those takes, because that's gross on a level
painful.
that I can't.
They're so painful.
Yeah, but that's also really gross at a level that I cannot even begin to express. But it is nice on that note to see so many people of color in a raid series again, because pretty much almost every character that we meet and like fight and interact with is black, and that's great.
I agree.
It's so nice. Like, I keep seeing fan art and no one's lightening the skin tones and all that, and I'm like, damn, this is good. This game is getting better, actually.
It was refreshing. I think a lot of it benefited from saying, okay, this is Tyrol, this is the Americas. America's a very diverse place. Let's reflect that in the game. And that made me super happy.
I mean, it's how it is. I never consider actually really relevant myself. It's
well, you're also in Europe, where you have the little buckets.
The little buckets.
Yeah, every country has its own little bucket. Stay in your bucket. So in living memory, we go after the Venice place. I believe we go to Earth, which is Yesterland, which is I didn't want to go there. I thought it was weird and a little creepy. But once I got there, I was like, oh, this place isn't bad at all. Otis made it a lot better, I think.
I love the way that you said that implied that there's Venice and then there's Earth.
True.
Not quite what I meant. I meant the element Earth, but yes.
I
It's
know,
more on the
I know.
water. But...
I know, but my brain, I'm so tired, was like, huh, that's right. That's how this works.
Yes, Venice is on the moon. We all know this.
Technically, it's on the water, not the earth. No, kidding.
Neela?
I mean, it's sinking into the water. I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. There's probably an apt metaphor for living memory there as well.
You know, when you put it like that.
Someone did post these side by side.
Actually, now that you say that, that big like fancy light and water show they did right at the end that was like so focused on, yeah, kind of a big like, hey, here's the big thing before we go. It looks very pretty and kind of an app member.
You know what that
analogy,
reminded
yeah.
me of? And Aeneas, you'll get this. The
Vegas?
Bellagio in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yep.
I went there during
It's-
FanFest.
Yeah, well, it's also specifically that scene at the end of Ocean's 11 where they're standing at it and just peel away one
Huh.
by one. That's what you're doing in living memory, basically.
So, question in chat: what do you guys think about the theory going around right now? How the upcoming story arc might be revolving around Asim?
That's a given.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think Asim is. Gonna play
I knew that was going to happen the moment they revealed Dawntrail, and I was real firm on it.
So-
The moment they revealed the earrings were the Asima earrings, that was the moment I knew this is awesome. This is all about awesome. Though there's a catch, so
So, am I to understand that we should expect the sun to be rising?
I mean, yes, it's
I
dawn.
would say expect the sun to be rising, but expect the sun to set as well.
Yes, it's dawn.
I can only
trail,
hope.
not dusk trail.
Well, I'm referring to Asim as a stand-in for the
Oh,
sun
yeah.
in this particular case. I think that the mere name and concept of it, where it's like we go through the night and now it's day again. I think that we are going to see a rise, as it were, in Asim lore, or at least presence behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I should mention this though.
No, do it.
Only you can decide.
Yeah, mention it. Talk about it. Let's go into
Okay.
whatever it is. I don't care how crazy it sounds.
Okay, I would say this is actually a really clever trap the developers have set the player base ever since Shadowbringers, in fact, and is the fact that our player character is the name we give the player character, and our ancient self is as of now, and I suspect this is very, very much how it's going to continue. The name we give them, right? Asim is not our character's name, neither was the name of our ancient self. Asim is a title, and as a title, it can apply to different characters. Which means we may be getting a story about Asim, but not necessarily about us as Asim. Of course, there's going to be us
I've
as
seen
Asim, but I am convinced that it's going to be about other characters that have been bearing the mantle of Asim. So
Yeah, I've seen a few basically cage match level disagreements of what Asim's actual name was, and I'm like, they are not likely to
no.
determine such a thing. I don't know why you're acting like they are.
Asim is so unique in the way that it's set up, because the whole point of it is that you as a player are able to make decisions about him. So you have to have a certain level of agency over that
Exactly.
character with headcanons
However-
and that. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's why I was surprised that people were upset that they didn't get to interact with Asim at Endwalker. And I'm like, no, that defeats
They can
the
do
whole
that.
purpose.
They can.
Mhm.
They
You would
can't do that.
explode the game.
Yeah.
They can't do that. If
I've
we ever
played
get
Portal
to
2.
see,
I know what happens if you meet a past version of yourself.
Neela!
I-
Spraying you with a water bottle.
See, and here I am,
If-
like, you mean future version of yourself? Like,
Spraying you with a water bottle too. Stop it.
If a future version of you tries to warn you about this game, don't listen.
if we ever get a vision of Asim interacting with anyone else, is going to likely do it. They're going to use the Amorotine Shade version of it. It's
Absolutely.
the safest. It's the safest bet they can use.
Right.
And I would say another note. We, as our ancient self, Asim, quote unquote, they're going to leave that clearly. I'm convinced. Leave that to our. That doesn't mean that's not to say that we won't have dialogue and words spoken by Asim themselves, because in the short stories and all that, it's
Yeah.
evident that Asim had their own story, but they're not going to lean that much into that. They're going to leave most of it. Of course, there are going to be events that they will have to put their foot down and say, this is what Asim did, this is what Asim said, right?
Because this
But-
is how we ended up in the present timeline
Exactly.
required.
Exactly. So, but in terms of minor details, they will leave that to our interpretation. However, Asim, as in, for example, the first Asim, that's a different story because, and I'm not saying anymore that I believe Asim to be the word of light back to. No, I discard that. I think there's something else going on here. But the first Asim, that's a character they can develop.
I think on these lines as well, it's important to note where the agency lies as well, because as the player who now owns the soul that Asim had originally owned, like, you do have a certain level of agency over that. At the very least on an aesthetic level, right? Because at some point shards do resemble the originator to a certain extent, and everyone has unique player characters, but also in terms of personality and all of those things. But it's also important to note that you are not Asim in that sense, because you were taking different actions. You were your own person. The whole point is that you are no longer the originator of that soul.
Yeah.
Right? You have to make your own choices. You have full agency over your own character, but not entirely over who Asim was.
A previous holder of the soul.
Exactly.
We're the
right.
inheritor
Exactly.
of the legacy.
Yeah, you're different people. You're a new type of life, and you're also a new person. We see
Your
this-
circumstances. Sorry. Go
right.
ahead.
Yeah. No, it's your circumstances are different, but like the important thing I'm trying to get across here is the identity. Right.
Yeah, the idea of self, which I think actually living memory gets into a lot, because
Correct.
self is heavily tied to memory, because we make decisions based on knowledge and experiences that we have. So if if you've encountered a terrible behemoth, but maybe Asim hasn't encountered a terrible behemoth, you're going to react differently. And you see a meteor, you're going to run and hide behind it, and Asim's going to be like, I wonder just as an example, but like we're constructs of memory in that sense, the self is, which is why I found the shades actually very interesting, because they have that degree of personhood because of a self-understanding, but they didn't have agency to actually interact with the world and to cause change.
Right.
Right. And there's another great example of this is Ardbert, right? And
Yes.
other shards of you. They are also Asim, but they are also individuals from Asim, and they are also individuals from you, even though you and Ardbert now have rejoined your souls together.
Exactly.
And to tie that into living memory as well, they are facsimiles based on the memory of a person that has to a certain extent been altered and kind of programmed. We can call it corrupted, but programmed by the thing that is storing them, right? Even the Asians had a version of this that lent itself to giving more agency, which is the constellation stones, because they would share memories of that person
Yep.
that they were to the seat when they were ascended, but they still had identity. They still made separate choices, for which Fandaniel is my favorite example of this, because Amon was raised to the seat of Fandaniel. He was given like the memories that the Unsundered had of Fandaniel, and he still made his own choices because he wasn't Hermes. And adding those memories into the mix only gave him a new perspective. It made him someone else entirely. So he wasn't Hermes, but he also wasn't entirely Amon at that point because he was
Exactly.
becoming another person, i.e. Fandaniel, which, mild tangent, I will never get over how strong Asahi's soul was that he retained personhood inside of Fandaniel for months
Right?
before seeing that the Warrior of Light
That
had
was so
everything unlocked.
weird.
And he's like, I'm going to go bide my time in the live stream so I can be vindictive and gay when the Warrior of Light finally sends Amon to me, and then I can deal the killing blow at the live stream.
That shit was so weird.
It was so weird, but it also it speaks to the strength of different people's souls individually, right? Like a muscle that you have to train. And Asahi was so single-minded and determined in a way that only a gay man with a grudge could be. That like he turned that into his strength of his soul versus Thancred, for example, when he got possessed by La Habrea being an Unsundered, he kind of folded pretty much immediately, right? He doesn't remember anything that happened
nothing.
there. Yeah, at least that he's telling us, right? It could be something where he's like, I don't want to talk about this because he's repressed and doesn't want to talk about it. But
I
there's...
mean, it's that or La Habrea needed money, so used his body to do a bunch of like stripping or something. I'm kidding. Hopefully. What?
I mean,
What? They need money.
I'm just imagining La Habrea from Pandemonium making that decision.
Good.
Okay, great. Now that image is in my mind. All that to say, the identity and personhood of souls is so interesting because it's not just tied to the soul itself. It's not, I am 8 parts of Asim, and so I have to be 8 parts of who this person used to be. You have the soul. The soul is disconnected from your identity, but also a part of it. You kind of have to make up your own individuality, and that tracks across the entire story and is very much championed by living memory.
Something that it's easy to lose sight of is that other people are having the same soul come back with different lives in the sense of rebirth. Even the ancients had this happen, where so and so would be the holder of a soul. They would pass on. They would be reborn eventually, and it's the same soul, but it's a different person. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It's just we're chopped up a little bit.
I think that's something interesting that it's a balance. It's a balance between the soul. The soul is the soul, but your personality is yours. But at the same time, that we naturally repeat the same things that our soul once did, and gravitate around the same people we used to be. So. Like for example, in Shalani, when we meet Source Magnus and the trolley crew, or the same things that similar things that happen in between standard souls and all that, and you could say in rebirth you have become something entirely different, which is something that La Habrea said to, Claudian, or Ecthonius, you could say. And there's this balance in which Claudian remembers his life as has the Erechthonius' memory, but still is Claudian. So I don't see why can't be both a combination. The ideal circumstance have both a combination of this. It doesn't have to be a bad thing per se. It also makes me think that in the same vein that we shouldn't be chained down by who we were in our past life. This could apply to the ancients themselves as who they were in their own past lives, because we tend to think like in the present, as of sounded the theories, but who's to say that this is not something that can carry out from before the time of the ancients as we know them, you know? I'm just leaving that like...
Living their best life.
No. I mean, this is difficult without going into too deep stuff. No. I don't
Well, I see what you're saying, Meowth. It's the thing we talked about last week too, right? Where souls finding each other over and over again. It's not necessarily fate. It is sometimes just comfort. And like life exists in patterns, albeit loosely, albeit chaotic, but life exists in patterns. So who's to say that the same doesn't hold true for souls, right?
Yeah. And
a forest will continue to spread, but it will still be a forest. It's hard to find a tree in isolation naturally, unless man planted it there, right? Same thing with souls. They're going to crop up in groups, and the likelihood of souls finding each other again and again over millennia, it's not as small as you think.
Also, there are instances that we've seen multiple times of traumatic events or something particularly, I guess traumatic, searing memories onto souls. So even though the memories are washed away in the live stream, there's still an echo of that remains in the soul. So we saw that with Fan Daniel. We see that with people who awaken to the echo when they see the Mirage of Amarat. And Zoelia in chat says there's latent memory that Orogenics notes say can cause personality corruption. Likely is related to that as well.
Yeah. In that case, when we talk about seared things on your soul, I have to inevitably, and I do have to finish that fucking script, the glyphs of the convocation.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to finish that script, but but yeah, which is one of the reasons I'm quite interested as Eden Ultimate, because if you may recall, when Lograve was reborn, the glyph was awakened when she kind of recovered her memories through Midturn's own memories. So what is exactly the nature of the Convocation's glyphs? Which we know that's not Asian quote-unquote glyphs. They already had them back in the Convocation days.
Right.
Yeah, it's so... Oh god, I remember this vividly because the last time I moved, back in 2022, I want to say, I remember waking up to 400 messages on Discord because I had missed like 30 minutes of a live letter where they actually talked about what the glyphs were.
Yes. Well, what the glyphs were at that moment.
Right, yeah, but they did talk about the physical aspect of it, that it is a symbol of office, but it is something that is basically imprinted onto like their soul, and is very much not just a symbol of office, but also a limiter on their power, which is also indicative to the office, right? Just inherently to what Convocation was.
Yeah, I do have to finish that fucking script.
Yeah, and to the point Zoella put in chat about personality corruption, if someone is messing with your soul and your memories at the same time, who is to say that you will even remember the person that you were beforehand and don't come out of that entirely different? Yeah, Gaia is a great example, but even like if you have trauma that results in memory loss, you're going to act differently, right? Now put that
I have
on
memory loss IRL.
Yeah.
And it sucks, and it affects the way I behave, because I will do things and say things, and then people will be like, yeah, you already told me that, and I'm just like, wouldn't have done that if I'd known you knew.
And it's also a thing, like, if you're wearing a regulator, you will forget people when they die. What happens if they have, like, a version of Calamity and suddenly a whole bunch of people that they knew are gone? I am very much a product of my friends that I spend time with, my friends and family. If they go away and I have no memory of them and I don't understand why I'm saying certain phrases because they used to be part of an inside joke and I don't know why I'm like going to this coffee shop at specific periods of time because it's, hey, maybe I just always met up with one coworker there every single morning. But if that coworker disappears from my memory and I'm going to a coffee shop aimlessly, something is missing. It changes your personality, and I personally think it would drive me mad to not know why I'm
Absolutely.
doing those things.
Oh, absolutely.
Hello, Type Zero, my old friend.
Yeah, right. But it's that when they're talking about personality corruption, they're not talking about it in the sense of this is a physical thing like a soul and their memories and their dynamis. They're talking about like your personality is a product of all of those things and your lived experiences. So when they start going away, your personality inherently has to change.
Hmm.
You
Like,
really
our
have. You really have to play it fucking 13.
I
in
know
NAS.
it's on. Let me get through this savage tier, please.
The
I'm
thing
begging
is,
you.
like, as much as it sucks to grieve, having that hole in our lives, that conscious missing of a person, is a tribute to them in another way. And again, yes, 13. Enough said there. But like having that ripped away it struck me as very messed up.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
also struck me as a
basically-
justification. Like they needed those memories. They were taking those memories to reconstruct the person. Because like it wasn't like, oh well, do you want to opt in or out of having your no, they just do it.
right.
It's basically carving out
Or
a
what
part.
else
A
they're
part.
taking.
It's carving
Sorry.
out a part of yourself. It's
Yeah.
fucked up.
Yep. And it's never can be a perfect process because people who are more observant are going to notice the holes, and we see it with a lot of the side quests in Solution 9, in and around.
Yeah, those side quests are really good. If anyone hasn't done them, you should do them.
I'm working on it. Please let me get through this savage tier.
Picky,
It's gonna be
picky.
my response for a while.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Tetsugen says, "Can't the soul have inherited memories etched onto it?" Yes, absolutely. That's what we're talking about in regards to traumatic events. Basically, it's a really messed up analogy, but the thing it reminds me of is radiation shadows, where
Yeah.
that's what it reminds me of. When the atomic blast went off and people's shadows were burned into
Ah.
the concrete, that's what it reminds me of. When something so traumatic happens that it sears it onto the soul.
It's a valid comparison to draw, considering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also apt at this point to discuss one of my favorite parts of Pandemonium that I don't think gets addressed often enough, which is the way in which those constellation crystals were conceived was La Habrea literally cutting out a piece of his own soul because it wasn't
Mhm.
simply enough to forget Athena, because he loved her deeply and genuinely. And he knew that in order to do what he had to do, it wouldn't be he wouldn't be able to do it as he was. It fundamentally changed him emotionally and mentally because it's a deeply traumatic thing that he had to do and experience, and he knew that he had to do it to protect their son. But he
And
literally had
was
to cut
corrupted.
off a piece of his own soul because that was how deep his love and his memories for Athena went, right? It's a very physical example of that is what it is to delete memories.
See, I found it more about the corruption, but that's interesting.
It is the corruption, right? But the corruption was inherently tied to Athena because he wouldn't have even
Yeah.
considered it without her. He's very uptight. He takes his job so seriously. It is his greatest love.
Mhm.
And the fact that his love for Athena competed with that and needed to be pushed aside for the sake of his family, and the fact that at some point he did fall in love with her. I don't necessarily want to say prior to the madness because we knew she'd been mad for a very long time, but you can't really cast those feelings aside in something like this, right? It just, that part always gets me to tear up because it hurts so deeply, and the metaphor for grief that we've kind of been talking about right now, it rocked me to my core. It really did.
Yeah, I will say living memory, it hit me pretty hard. I lost my dad this year, and so it was rough going through that, and me thinking, if I could see him again, but it was not really him, it was just his memories corporealized, how would I react? Don't get all awkward on me now.
No, it's just
No. I'm not awkward. I can relate to the feeling.
everyone has different experiences with this, right? But giving it the weight that it deserves, loss, experiencing it the way that you need to, and not defiling someone's memory by recreating them as less than themselves. Good themes.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking themes.
I agree.
I am sitting here tearing up discussing this, but it's something that you were forced to grapple with in living memory to a degree that is supposed to hurt, because you're supposed to ask yourself really hard questions, and it does an excellent job of it.
I agree.
Whew.
Sorry, getting a little heavy there.
I can make a lighter topic of conversation as
Yes,
breather.
please.
Have y'all seen the tweet about how they used... Oh, what's his fucking face? I never do these quests. What's his name? The one from the Mandervilles.
Oh, yeah.
Hildebrand.
Otis.
Hildebrand. Yeah, Hildebrand and Otis. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I saw it.
I think it's hilarious because it does track, but
Yeah.
I now completely understand why the Mandervilles are the way they are, because they could have been Otis adjacent. But somewhere down the line they procreated with aliens, and that is why we have the silliness that we have now.
But we realized at the end of the quest that they were adopted, so they're not
Right.
directly descended from the aliens.
I know, but it's so fucking funny. I thought the tweet is genius, and it did make me appreciate that, because it is the same brand of silliness.
Yeah.
I'm not much for the Hildebrand quests because slapstick humor just isn't my thing. But the Mandervilles being Steiner adjacent just makes so much sense to me.
Oh,
I
I
think it's
loved
a
it,
fun
yeah.
theory. I like it.
I love
It
it.
is
Really
fun.
me.
I thought it was fantastic, and it absolutely does fit. Whereas he's obsessed with, investigating and being an investigator to various degrees of failure. In living memory, he is very much obsessed with protecting the queen, and he does an amazing job of that, and he is so dedicated to that. But the fact that it's the same soul, but due to his upbringing, it's so different a person because there are different memories attached to it was fantastic to see. We also see Estinian and Urianger. Their shards here
Yeah.
during the play, I believe. But seeing Otis having his PTSD movement during the play was that was rough.
It was
It
also
felt
really
very
well
real.
done. I
Yeah.
tried to bring the mood up, guys. Come on.
We're talking about living memory here. It's
I'm
gonna-
sorry,
We're
it's
talking
just the
about
topic.
trauma,
Exactly.
yeah. I think they just did it really well, and I appreciated the nods to everyone
Yes.
and how they dealt with things in living memory. So
I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I do want to talk about the Pyro area and the Malala Shrine.
yes,
So
Ah,
let's
yes.
go into the records of the Malala.
Oh boy.
So we get the history of them here. They came from a land of endless summer. They didn't like it there because it got cold. They started dying. Yeah, you can't wait.
I wouldn't
for
like that either.
I wouldn't either. So they decided to leave. They used the key. They went somewhere else. But what really gets me,
And
Yeah.
indirect name drop.
yeah, indirect name drop.
They traveled on a path of gleaming gold or whatever that was. It's like, yeah, they took a literal Dawntrail.
Yeah.
A question though. Would you say that the South Sea Isles in the map is near enough or close to equatorial in real life?
Well, here's the thing. This is like what we learn in Laynode Pyro area is their history, their legends passed down. It may have been just like, oh, well, the seasons were very mild, and then that just overtelling became, well, compared to here, it was like endless summer, you know? So it may not, taking it too literally could be confusing because this is a legend.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm asking because usually near to equatorial climate areas mean usually a constant state of quote-unquote summer.
I mean,
Yes.
I equated Alo Alo Island to Hawaii. So,
I actually was thinking of the Canary Isles, but yeah,
I mean, Hawaii is closer to the equator than
yeah, I
any
know.
of the states, so
Yeah, it's essentially an island system. I highly recommend doing the variant Alo Alo stuff and reading all of the notes.
yes, they are quite good.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make sense at the time, but now it does. But
That's interesting because Galulja seems similar to Vivi, and Hildebrand had that mammoth named Vivi. That's a good point also, because that was also heavily inspired by Final Fantasy IX. So it is fun to see that they've had nods to 9 previously, just because I love 9. But also because that's the second time that Hildebrand has been associated with Final Fantasy IX in 14. I think it's funny that they keep doing this. He's been Steiner adjacent the whole time. It's been under our noses.
very true.
Yeah.
Touchstone said, but they had the key. Where'd it come
Go
from?
ahead to your
That's
background.
the question, isn't it? Where did the key come from? We don't know. That's one of the big mysteries right now. I can't even speculate on where the key came from.
I'll speculate, but I don't have that much evidence.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Exactly.
The key right now just exists. We know where it has been, and we know what it's done, but we don't know where it came from. So,
And we know that it reacts to the presence of Asim's soul.
yeah. So, it's a mystery, which I
Yeah,
love.
too.
I love having more questions.
The presence of Asim soul, that's questionable.
I do want to go into some of the other stuff in the museum, though. Notably, did anyone see the diagram of the planets?
I looked at that a
Yes.
lot, and I don't know what's going on with it, but I'm very curious.
Yeah, me too. Considering that there's the planet, there's a moon, there's another moon, and then there's what looks like an artificial one.
I was just talking about this with other people yesterday, and it sounds like they all orbit the central thing, which is confusing.
Yeah, it's very, very
Unless
strange.
there's a third moon.
Which
Third secret moon.
yeah, which I was like, why is
Well, I mean,
there
the
a
second one
third?
wasn't a secret, but
And then they could have made an artificial moon out of Electrope as well.
that would be a lot of electric. Like, duh.
Yeah,
Oh.
but they did it with Dalamud.
I ain't saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that made my brain hurt.
Right. And that's kind of where my mind went. I don't know if it's going to be relevant at all, but I want to know more about it. And it's
Even
wonder
if
what
it's
it
not
means.
something that becomes
Why-
relevant in game, I just love to learn things.
yeah, exactly.
Same. I like cosmological stuff, but here's my question: why is that included in the exhibit, and
Yeah.
why isn't there a plaque I can read by it?
Yeah. Touchdown says FF9 moons, 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 artificial. I don't know. I haven't played 9.
I don't remember the artificial one.
There's not an
There's
artificial
not.
moon
Yeah,
in
it's the what. So in 9 there is kind of a diagram about worlds colliding, because that's kind of the end goal that our big baddie has. So the whole moon thing can also just be interpreted as, hey, here are the places that we've gone. Maybe for the Milala themselves, but also maybe for Alexandria has existed in this bubble for a very long time. Maybe they landed on a few more places before they came to the source.
I'm absolutely convinced of that.
Yeah, that feels more likely to me at this point, because if they're going to be introducing a new planet system, it would have to be in a place that we're going to be spending a lot of time, and I don't see a way for us to be spending another whole expansion exploring the empty husk of living memory.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
my
Well,
thought is that before before Everkeep landed in Yasowani, they didn't have a way of getting out of the barrier. Like they kept the barrier up, so they wouldn't necessarily have interacted with the world
Right.
outside of it. So they would have just
Yeah.
sucked up whatever ether was in their little area and moved on. If they had any other successful rejoinings, which we don't know that they did.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Was that I've been trying to tie it with the 9 themes that may make sense, and it's interesting because in 9 they had several successful fusions, and then one that went horribly wrong, and that was the one. In this case, it seems kind of the other way around. Like they had a bunch of quote unquote unsuccessful ones, whatever that means, which I haven't been able to grasp solidly as a concept until this successful one.
Right.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something to put a pin in and recognize when it comes up later down the line, and then we
Exactly.
can go back and say, "Oh, hey, this looks like the thing that the Malalas knew stuff about."
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, the next room, the room with the masks. What's everyone's takes on
Memoria.
that? Yeah. What's everyone's take on this?
I mean, that they did rip straight from 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think they did seed other elements of 14 and maybe other things as well into it, with the whole convocation angle. But I found it interesting that the quest was like, count how many different types there are, and I was like, they really want us looking closely at these masks. Why? Because that's like, why else? Why else is that the quest to do? You have to look closely at them, look for similarities and differences. It was very interesting to me.
It was fun to be forced to reckon with it, because the previous time that we've seen this referenced is in Hades' Wings, right?
Yep.
Because it is a memorial to a civilization lost, to
Right.
the memory of those people.
Mhm.
So I was coming at it more from their drawing in the thematic element of, you have to look at these faces because faces are personable, and reconcile with what you're about to do, because it's gone back to reference itself, right? Because 14 players, even if you haven't played 9, you know what those masks mean to Hades. It is impossible to get through the story
Yep.
without not knowing what those masks mean to Hades. And so to put it in living memory, even taking 9 out of it, you're going back to evoking, there's a civilization here. And this is one of the later things that you are shutting down. This isn't the first one, this isn't the second one. You are very explicitly being told you were ending a civilization. And if you haven't been grappling with the morals of it before this point, this is kind of where it starts directly saying, hey, you need to be thinking about Emmett Selk right now as you're taking these actions.
Yeah. And we'll get to that later, because Emmett Selk comes up again. I'm sure Meowth will go off on a tangent on this once we get to Note Arrow. Because, well, you know what? Let's go into that now, because you're absolutely right.
I'm sorry, what?
You're absolutely right that they're trying to evoke Emmett Selk and put Emmett Selk in your mind. And I'm thinking specifically of Aaronville when he has his confrontation with Kafkiwa.
Sorry, we were. I spaced out. I was sorry. Wow. My bad. No, no, it's something I hate when it happens, when I have a realization right on the stream, and my mind was. I have to remind me later, Neela, to share something with you. Okay.
Very well.
We were discussing masks, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I actually. Oh fuck. So I actually did something. First when. Will you allow me to, share this? Because I posted this on my Twitter.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you want to check something, let me. Okay. Tagging you. Here.
Yes. So.
Yes, that's interesting.
We had talked about that, and I agree with half of them. But that the masks are Asian masks, but that we only really recognize maybe 2 or 3 of them. But I was more referring to what Aeneas was saying, where they were trying to say,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not thinking about Emmett Silk right now, you need to be. And going into Laynode Arrow and then Aaronville and Kafkiwa's interaction there.
Hmm.
Because I remember you were talking about how Aaronville basically takes the place of Emmett Selk in this story as him
Yes, he does.
alongside us in our journey. So I don't know if you want to go into that at all.
So I can link another one of my tweets to that, actually. Give me a moment.
Because like even down to the
Let me
animations
see.
from Shadowbringers, Aaronville does the exact same movements
He
as Emmett
does,
Selk.
yeah. In a very specific moment of Shadowbringers, which is really, really interesting. Give me a moment. Because I gather a few things in my Twitter which no one actually reads, but
I read it.
Well, now I'm following you. I didn't realize I wasn't, so I will now be reading everything. Yeah.
okay. So there's that.
Okay, good. Yes, this is the tweet I was wanting to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me pull it up.
I mean, I made the gifs because it's easier to show that rather than tell in this. But Dawntrail actually shows more than it tells you.
Right.
Which is exactly what Line Returns does, but
Which is maybe a change that's been difficult for some people.
it is. It's not this sort of narrative. I have to pull a video about what meta-narrative is and how to read it, but I will agree it's not something most people is used to read because it's kind of difficult. I am trained, but not everyone is going to catch it, and they're taking refuge on that in the knowledge that not many people
100%.
read stuff in meta-narrative.
It's actually, I think it's a very good decision for a ground-laying, seeding type of expansion, because then people are gonna look back and be like, "Oh my God, it's been there since the beginning, but I didn't catch it at the time."
Oh, and they're gonna say, "Oh, it's so brilliant! They set this up so far ago, and no one knew."
And no one.
All of us sitting here going,
No.
we've been trying to tell you. You told us we were wrong.
Yes, exactly.
And now,
There's
and now
a
you
meme for
come
this.
to
Where's
me. Yeah,
the
it's
meme?
you know exactly what I'm thinking about. You come to me in your hour of need. It's
I don't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing to go along with Meowth's observation here. Those gifs are brilliant. Now I can actually share these with people. Is Aaronville tells the story as if it's already happened, as if lives have already been lost. It is also very evocative of Emmett, not just narrating Endwalker as you're going through it, but also being like, hey, here is the civilization I had in Amarant. Here is the downfall of it. And Aaronville is very vague about it because we're still experiencing the story, right? It's not happening in real time right before our eyes. But it is the narrative parallel that goes alongside it,
When
too,
it comes
in addition to just the direct one-for-ones.
When it comes to Aaronville, one of the things that I think hit me perhaps a bit on hindsight is the theme with heritage found. Because Yasulani is his homeland, and then he suddenly finds all of a sudden everything and everyone he knew is gone, and
his home is lost forever.
His land has become
Foreign.
invaded by something that he doesn't recognize, and that is almost a one-to-one parallel to.
And not
to
only
Thundering.
that, because of the time dilation effect inside, he's been left in the past compared to where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually quite deftly done to put us in the seat of the Asians and the Ancients.
Once again.
Once again.
which is why I am convinced where the story is going, actually.
So yeah, if you weren't thinking about
Yes.
Emmett Selk already, there it is.
For that matter, before the final terminal, Erenville makes offhand comment as to how we're going to enter the Meso terminal, and he says that Kakiwa, his mother, left him a method by to guide our souls into the terminal, and I'm like, what? Like, he drops that, and first it's like a what moment, and second it's another nod to Ametselk, who is, has this ability to guide souls,
Yeah.
So
Good
yeah.
stuff. But yeah. Let's see, the Lava Dome is almost 1-to-1 to Oilivert in Final Fantasy IX with the mirror room of the masks and the planet of two moons. Won't talk about M4S, but I think there's a big hint in the background there.
Yeah, Tetsugen, that's what we were talking about earlier. With it being a direct rip from 9. Some of the masks are also styled similarly, but with a 14 twist to evoke the ancients.
Let's see. And yeah, here's the masks that Meowth has drawn over.
Yes.
I know you say this is a Litibus. I think it's a Euros.
His is a difficult mask to draw because it has a prominent volume, because it's kind of a style
It sticks out really far, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's not very flat.
difficult.
You may want to
difficult to
scroll
read.
up a little so
Yeah.
that we can see the sketch of our Litibus, just because there you go.
And this one over here, the one that's question mark Azem, that one right here. And yeah, Neely, you had that one ready.
Yeah,
as soon as I
pointed
saw
out,
it, they'd like
yeah.
my brain cells, like 2 of them, just were like, "Hey, this looks familiar." Remember the Scion Traveler's outfit? Because it does help that Emerald at the time had actually done quite a bit of analysis and looking into this mask, and I'd seen her work and was like, "No, that's interesting." And I wasn't convinced at the time, but it looks a lot like this, and I'm like,
Right? Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
One thing that they didn't pull in from 9 that I don't necessarily disappointed by, it was just kind of a weird moment where I was expecting it to happen and then it just didn't, is that these masks actually speak in 9.
Oh.
Yes, they do.
Oh.
Yeah, this is something that they borrowed for Final Fantasy XII, which we do keep bringing up, where you go into this room filled with these stone faces, and they speak to you and tell you their history.
That's interesting, because we get it thematically, we just don't get it literally, because in this case, the masks that are representing, I assume these masks are representing the dead, they certainly were in 9. We get actual facsimiles of the dead speaking to us instead. So we get it thematically, just not in the same way.
Right, and that's where I was going to point it out, is because we get the inversion of it. No, you're totally fine. I was just going to point out that in the Hall of Masks, we're like reading about the history as well, but it's not first person. It's not, here is who we were, here is what happened to us, this is why we are trying to do what we're doing. It is someone else who has archived that history and has put up a facade to it. And the voices that are speaking are these people who are memories, but they are filtered through the archival system preservation. It's supposed to. That's why I think that's you stumbled onto, Neela, why I had such a weird experience with this moment in MSQ, because I was expecting to have that same deeply personal connection to these masks, and then it just didn't happen. Everything felt empty, it felt thin, it felt wrong, and that's kind of speaks to the way that we were going through living memories, seeing all of these people talking about themselves as if they were alive. It's the same thing but with less depth, because it's not them.
And that contrasted with where we were in the story at that time, talking with Kryle's biological parents, and them being like, "Yo, we have this knowledge, we're worried it's going to be used against us. We want you to end us." It's quite a juxtaposition. Go ahead.
One of the many reasons I don't believe preservation to be anything related to Asians per se, is the emptiness of that room. It's cold. It's something that's something an Asian wouldn't do to the masks of their people. This is a recreation. So I don't know. This is so. For context, preservation recreated the legend, the shrines of the Milala. So this is like the closest approximation we have to how their sacred sites were in the source, right? But this is a recreation all in all, and it's empty. This is something that any Asian wouldn't have done. You know what I'm trying to say? This is it's a parody. It's a
Right.
mock, vain attempt of that. This is one of the reasons I don't believe preservation has anything to do with the Asians. It's actually on the contrary.
And then
Honestly, just the name has me, because the Asians don't want to preserve reality as it is. They want
Rejoining.
to return it to how it was.
So
That's just my take.
I do want to call attention to the conversation Elidibus had with Varys at the
Yes,
end of
but-
Stormblood, where he says one of their goals is preservation and restoration.
right.
Yes,
But I don't think
Yeah,
that
but
means Elidibus was involved
I
here.
think
No,
Elidibus
I don't
was
think
the
so.
one that cared about preservation, and the rest of them were like, "Yeah, we're gonna rejoin stuff." And he's like, "Dudes, we gotta manage the balance."
And it's also worth noting that a lot of the way that Asians influenced societies, like they're going to use this language, right? But it's going to be corrupted by the very nature of Sundered Society and the fact that this was one of the shards that they're trying to rejoin. So they could be borrowing language like preservation, and they're like, oh yeah, that's why we're doing this, preservation. But what it means to them was destroying their civilization, when what it meant to the Asians was we will be able to use the way that we have manipulated the society to cause a rejoining.
Oh, absolutely.
when it comes to Elidibus, his understanding of preservation is rather the preservation of the balance between light and dark, which is a different thing.
That's my
What
approach as well.
That what Elidibus is talking about in that scene is different, and as it happens with Asian ancient concepts and what the Sundered think of the same. I mean, the core perhaps is the same, but their interpretation is bound to be different, which is something that's brought up in Shadowbringers.
So
Like
I
there's
don't,
this.
yeah.
This is a constant. This is a constant conflict of sorts, and this is pretty much a tragedy in the fact that the ancients, the Asians, and the Sundered are essentially the same. They're basically they share the same roots, but they're also at the same time so fundamentally different that they're bound to have very very opposite views.
Oh, absolutely. And
We so one of the conflicts in Shadowbringers was so how should I put this? In Shadowbringers, the core of it, like the resolution in Shadowbringers was, we are too different, we cannot coexist. But if we're going to take a twist on that, we would come from we are too different, we cannot coexist, which is the point of Dawntrail actually, and we blend in finding the common point. You know, that's actually what happens in Dawntrails. The whole part of the first rite of succession is finding out how so many different cultures blended together into Leolan, right?
yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
my
so-
point.
But I'm not suggesting that Elidibus had anything to do with preservation
Yeah.
in
No.
Alexandria. More that it wasn't something that they had ignored, and especially because Elidibus said, sometimes I will stand with them, sometimes I'll stand against them, all for the betterment of the star. So it makes me wonder if there weren't things that Elidibus had set into motion, like preservation, but not preservation itself, because I don't think any of the Asians were involved in preservation proper.
No, that
I would
go
say-
too far.
I would say the
Yeah.
I do-
calamity would be the Asian thing, but preservation, no, that's different.
I will also say that I think that they may have sowed seeds and then had things either go off plan faster, or like had things break down on the source so that it didn't go as well.
Right.
So it's a complicated process, and sometimes joinings don't go quite as you plan, especially because there's all those pesky mortals involved. You know
Right.
how it is.
Yeah.
And
They tend to screw
it
things up.
also goes back to the thing we've been talking about kind of the fundamental nature of life, because the way that we perceive living memory is that it is dead and we're just kind of cleaning up. But at some point it was full of life, and it was these things, and these memories were people that genuinely wanted the best for themselves and their society. We keep talking about the narrative parallels because they're impossible to ignore, but to kind of tie in everything we've talked about this whole episode, the masks, right? They don't speak in living memory, but they do speak to Emmett Selk when you fight Hades. Same
Yep.
thing can be said for Elidibus when you finally face him. He has a final monologue where he is not necessarily speaking to you or to himself, but to his people or what he remembers of them, right? The memory is still there, and that memory is such a critical part of it. So to turn all of it on its head, it calls to mind all of the memories of the people that we've lost, but also the ways that we've had to experience this type of loss in the game previously.
For sure. For sure.
Hmm.
Any last points before we wrap up for today? We're actually over on time again.
And I expect
I'm
that's
shocked.
happening.
This keeps happening. I don't know why.
We have a lot to talk about.
We do. There is a lot.
It's a good game.
Damn
It's
you,
an
Yoshi.
amazing. It's an amazing expansion. Like, I told Ayumi after finishing Dawntrail, I would personally only put it below Shadowbringers, actually. Close to Heaven's Word, but still right above because of the whole many things it's opened. I love Dawntrail.
Yeah, I absolutely love this expansion. It's in top 3 for me with Heaven's Word and Shadowbringers.
And
Have we discussed Ghoul? I'm not going to start this discussion. I'm just trying to remember. Have we discussed Ghoul-Jaw much yet?
Briefly?
Yes.
Yeah, we did
I
talk
think
about
that
him.
might have been the episode you were out.
Yeah.
That probably was then. Okay, no worries.
He's a clone. Anyway.
Last night as I was
kind of-
falling asleep, I was sitting there and I realized, because I was thinking of the iconic "You're Not Alone" music, and it was once cited at him, and I was just like, because I will admit, I'm praying for a Soken redo of that piece. I would live for it so hard, but and I was sitting there thinking about that, and I was like, wonder if we're gonna get that. And then I was like, oh man, if he's as Zidane coded as I suspect, we probably will.
We literally talked about him in the context of, is he Zidane coded or is he VV coded? Because both of them
Could be
have
both.
horrible.
I think
it could be both.
there's a bit of both, but I think we're going to be
Right.
leaning, if I'm correct about the clone theory, which again, I really want to know, who the fuck is Zoralja's mom? Does he have a mom? We need to know. I have
Right.
questions. I swear it's not inappropriate. This is for lineage purposes only. Totally. But honestly, it's open ended and it's curious as a result. So it's hard to be confident in that. But I was telling Meowth, the more I listen to the Zoralja fight music, the more I think Ghoul-Jaw is a clone, which is weird to say, but I feel like it's coded into the music.
No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where ultimately what he is comes down to how Zoralja viewed his son, because if he viewed him as something that could have become a weapon, then it would be a VP
Yep.
code.
Yep.
But if he viewed him as, and obviously at the end that there is a certain level of passing the torch, right?
Yeah.
But if he viewed him as a replacement or a successor or a tool that wasn't necessarily a weapon, just something that he could use, that would end up being a little bit more Zidane, which would still be a better option than you were my child, therefore you were a weapon. But
I've seen people indicate or suggest, because I've been like, hey, why would he have a kid? He doesn't seem interested in having a kid. I've seen people suggest in response to that, what if Sven had him made, again, as a potential backup for something happening to Zoralja?
exactly, yeah.
And
which
that I could
is
see,
something.
he being her tool and having this legacy from the one he was cloned from, potentially. Again, sad that I missed this, but that's life, ain't it?
I love
No,
that makes
but-
Zoralja Kuja. That's hilarious.
No, yeah, it's Zoralja.
It kind of fits in some ways.
It does.
He's at face value. Zoralja is Kuja, but there's
Yeah, it's
more
very much face
about
value,
that.
but
Like it happens in Dawntrail. We have the wrapping of 9, but there's lots of things going behind that people are not realizing.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I am
We love it.
very excited. Yes, I absolutely love it. I am very, very excited for where the story is going. So, but all right. So next week we are going to be talking about the Arcadian. Very excited about that.
Are we not
Cast.
going to mention anything about the Grail?
No,
Anything?
No.
nothing at all.
Well, that's gonna need its own episode. What are
I
you talking
agree.
about?
That's going to need its own episode.
That's fair.
Yeah, because there's a lot to go into
Or
about
maybe-
the Grail.
Or maybe a lore line between the lines video or 3.
Or, yeah, so all right, everybody. Thank you again so much for joining us today. We will see you again next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Take it easy, y'all.